Strip mining is an important process that takes all the elements out of the ground to utilize stuff like that we use every day, our mobile phones, cameras, computers, cars. Without these elements from strip mining, we would have no technology. But as you can see, it has a devastating effect on the land that gets strip mined. I mean, this used to be a mountain. There used to be a mountain here with trees and wildlife, and as you guys can see, the mountain has been inverted pretty much. There's now a giant hole, and the land will never fully recover. Unless, what if we could start getting, this is gonna make your mind blown, okay? What if we could start getting these precious metals from trees that have nickel inside of them, trees that have metal inside of their very being, inside of their sap? What if we could plant these trees and keep planting them and cut them down to get these precious metals, and then plant more trees and have a sustainable way of getting precious metals without actually destroying the land like this? If you find this interesting, I do too. So I want you guys to come join me on this channel, because we do daily videos talking about absolutely everything, including unboxing reviews and stuff like that. We do have 2 YouTube channels. Channel 2 is where we do daily videos, but of course Channel 1 is where I do fortnightly, whenever I can be bothered, travel films. Going back to the article I want to show you guys. Imagine being able to mine for metals from trees. This is an interesting one. How agro-mining, farming plants that contain metal, could help power the future. Now take a look at this image. This image, a guy has made a little nick inside the tree with a knife or something, right? And look at the color of the sap. It is green. Green, that color green kind of represents the metal elements inside of this tree. Imagine being able to power your smartphone from tree sap. Very interesting, right? Let's read into this. This is from ABC News, by the way. When scientist Alan Baker made a cut in the side of an exotic plant in the Philippines, in the Philippine jungle, the sap that bled out had a jade green glow, I should say. Now, the shrub was a newly discovered species, soon to be known as that's a big one, that one. Whew. Philanthus bulgi. Okay, that's an interesting one. One of a very rare variety of plants that naturally suck high amounts of metallic elements from the soil. Have you ever heard about anything like this? I'm gonna say that you've probably not. Neither have I. But this is very interesting, right? The fluorescent sap turned out to be 9% nickel. Now, if you guys don't know, nickel can be used in coins. A lot of coins around the world. Well, every corner of Earth has their own different coins for money. Those coins may have variations in metal depending on where you go, but basically coins have nickel in them. Pretty crazy, right? That's pretty crazy. It's a welcome finding, but not a surprise, as Professor Baker's research into so-called hypoaccumulators had already uncovered species that seemed to thrive on everything from cobalt to zinc and even gold. Now imagine being able to plant a tree, a specific kind of tree, that once you cut down 5 years later will have gold rich all inside of its leaves, branches and stem. Imagine that. And then of course you keep planting these trees to have a beautiful environment, a renewable environment, so that species and humans can work together to utilize the elements. But yeah, imagine planting a tree, a money tree, out in the garden, and after a few years or so, you've got gold all up in the tree. Unbelievable. I did not know this was actually a thing. The fluorescent sap turned out to be 9% nickel, so I've already read that one. Okay, so these are plants which can take up elements from the soil at rates orders of magnitude higher than normal plants, Professor Baker has said. Now look at this image. This is another image of probably the same tree, and look at the color of the sap. So basically the tree is bleeding because it's been hurt. Poor tree, right? I have to agree, a poor tree. But look at the color of it. That color represents metals inside of the tree. The tree is literally bleeding metal. Unbelievable. Scientists are now on a quest to discover whether farming these plants could provide an alternative to environmentally destructive mining, while also helping to rehabilitate former mine sites. So imagine being able to, where are we? Imagine being able to plant those trees here, and those trees would want to grow here because the tree loves the kind of metal. But it's like when you throw salt and mix salt with the earth. Nothing wants to grow. Nothing much is what is going to want to grow there because of the metals and the chemicals that are there. But certain trees like this tree will potentially grow. And if you keep growing the trees and cut them down, you can continue getting the metals from the earth, but without actually damaging the earth, as long as you keep planting the trees in a sustainable method type thing, right? Very, very interesting. University of Queensland plant specialist Dr. Anthony van der Ist calls it agromining, but it's also known by the term, what's this one? That's an interesting one.
Phytomining.
Phytomining. Sounds like a dog. Here, Fido, fetch the ball, Fido. In his chemical analysis laboratory in suburban Brisbane, he's a Brizzy boy, Bris Vegas. He's currently doing tests on perhaps the most well-known hypoaccumulator of them all, the macadamium tree. That's a very interesting one, isn't it? Look at his thing on his shirt is actually glowing. There we go. Its leaves and sap, but not the nut, are rich in magnesium. Well, believe it or not, my nuts are actually rich in magnesium, so there you go. In recent years, he's traversed the globe searching for new species of hypoaccumulators, but COVID-19 has temporarily put that research on hold. He says the plants are most common in countries around the equator. We have found them in Southeast Asia as well as New Caledonia and in Cuba and Brazil, Dr. van der Ist has said. Right? He estimates that of the 300,000 known plant species on Earth, only 700 have hypoaccumulating properties. That's an interesting amount.
Hyperaccumulating.
So it's just a matter of finding which ones of those 700 do it as more efficient than the others, and then once you know which is the most efficient tree, which has the most amount of metals in it, then you can start utilizing this new technology. Very interesting, right? Of those, about 2/3 feed exclusively on nickel, including 3 species in New Caledonia, where the concentration of nickel in their sap is around 25%. Imagine 1/4 of your blood, 4/4 being all your blood, but imagine 1/4 of your blood being made out of metal. What? Liquid metal, man. Terminator 2. I'm trying to stab you through the screen. Never mind, I'm being a weirdo. Anyway, look at the picture of the sap going through the leaf and the tree leaf. Look at that. Yeah, what was it? Like 25% nickel. Wow. Cuttings from these wooded plants can be dried and incinerated into ash. Now this is interesting. That ash is known as bio-ore. It's extremely high-grade ore, which can then be processed using standard, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Hydrometallurgical techniques.
Hydrometallurgical techniques. So it's basically a technique to purify metal, I'm pretty sure, to be able to get the metal out and then utilize that to have it as pure as possible, like 100% if possible, you know? Chemical process. Nickel is where the most potential lies, he says. It's an important component in the production of modern lithium-ion batteries and stainless steel. It's a much sought-after element. A demonstration metal farm in Malaysia, I'm going to show you this in a second, a demonstration metal farm in Malaysia developed by researchers from the University of Lorraine Luray has been up and running for the past 5 years. So this is what it looks like. Here you can see in A and B, they're planting the plants. C and D, they're growing. E, they're still growing. And F, surprise, surprise, has grown even more. But these are the plants that they're growing on a derelict bit of ground. And these are the plants that can suck up the metals from the ground in the most highest quantities possible, and it saves. And of course, you cut those trees down using that chemical process to get the metals out, and that's 1,000 times better than this. But even though we do have heaps of these on Earth, we can still start using this technique here. Pretty crazy, right? Let's continue reading. The farm has reported continuous yields of between 200 and 300 kilograms of nickel per hectare per year. Wow! What the hell? That's amazing. But while the results from Malaysia are promising, commercialization is still some ways off, says Dr. Van der Est. He and his colleagues in Brisbane are currently looking for an industry partner. Most of the nickel in use today comes from countries like Indonesia and New Caledonia, where it has been mined at very great environmental costs. Just look at the picture down below, he says. So we hope this could be part of the strategy to source nickel in a more environmentally sustainable way. So look at that. You can see that this used to be, probably starts from here, right? This used to be a mountain all the way up there type thing. Just follow the mouse thing, and it used to go down here. This whole thing used to be a mountain with trees and everything. And yeah, they've completely, drained the land. Whatever the word is, it's not a good situation. But without this, what would we do with technology? We'd have no mobile phones, cars, fridges, TVs, anything technological. Lithium-ion batteries would not exist without techniques like this. But hopefully we can start using these new techniques. Let's continue reading. It's almost finished, I think. Where are we? Here we go. A tool for rehabilitation. So this is an interesting one. Let's say like we've said, let's say you've already got a ground that looks like this. How can we fix it as best as possible? Well, exactly why these plants develop the ability to absorb large amounts of metal is still a cause of speculation. All plants need some trace elements to grow, but the levels found in hypoaccumulators would normally be toxic for a plant. We'll just double check that one.
Hyperaccumulators.
Yeah, that's fine. The University of Melbourne's Professor Baker says it may be an evolutionary defense mechanism. Now, there are a number of theories that have been put out, but the most plausible one at the moment is that they do provide some protection against grazing insects and grazing animals, he says. That has been shown to happen experimentally under lab conditions, and there is also evidence from the field. Now, Dr. Van der Est hopes the unique absorption abilities of hypoaccumulators could one day be used to detoxify former mining sites. This is very interesting, wouldn't you say? Where you've had strip mining for nickel, which is a common practice in tropical regions, you could integrate the metal farming as part of the process of rehabilitation, he says. Now, typical rehabilitation costs money, and this is a strategy where you could actually offset some of those costs as part of the rehabilitation program. Professor Baker says agro mining could provide a source of income for people living sustainable lifestyles in developing countries. It does give lots of potential, I think, for areas which are inappropriate for normal agriculture, he says. So there we go. If the ground is stuffed up like that, normal agriculture, normal trees will just not grow, right? Now, this is the last little bit I wanted to read to you. It's only about a minute length. Pharmaceutical applications. What could this be used for pharmaceutical applications? Well, there are also potential medical benefits from growing and harvesting metal trees, Dr. Van der Est says. Many people in developing countries, he says, are deficient in zinc and selenium. Selenium Gomezum. Selena Gomez, both of which are essential for good health. We could actually use zinc and selenium hypoaccumulator plants to produce biomass that is enriched in these elements. Dr. Van der Est says this biomass, he says, could be turned into supplement for people to consume or could be used in a process called can't read that one.
Biofortification.
Biofortification to increase the concentration of zinc or selenium in staple crops. And that Dr. van der Eest says would provide a unique opportunity for Australian agriculture. The soil in large parts of central Australia is rich in selenium, and the plants that grow there have shown themselves to be extremely efficient hypoaccumulators. So the future of farming could be as much as harvesting metal as raising cattle and growing grain. Very interesting little article, wouldn't you say? Imagine getting gold from a tree or metal from a tree, and then continue planting these trees to be able to continue getting them as years go by. Sustainable lifestyle. If you guys found this interesting, once again, consider giving this channel a bit of a subscribe and a ring the bell situation. Otherwise, YouTube's mean. If you don't ring the bell, you literally won't know when I post something new. I've been Tall. My name's Gareth. I will see you for tomorrow's video. Peace, guys. Bye.